call this meeting to order for CAMPO, for the Carson Area Metropolitan Planning Organization. Can I have roll call, please, Kathy?
Chairperson Kimbrough.
Here.
Vice Chairperson Bonkowski.
Here.
Member Alt. Member Bagwell. Member Erb. Member McQuarrie.
Here.
Member Stadfield.
Here.
Ex officio Member Rosenberg. Here. Quorum is present.
Great, thank you. Is there any reason any agenda item out of two? I wouldn't think so, huh?
No, Mr. Chair.
Yeah. Any disclosures? No disclosures, so we'll move forward with that. This is a chance for the public comment to come forward, Aubrey. At the beginning of the session here, they're usually on items not on the agenda, but we have an introduction here tonight.
I just wanted to take this opportunity. My name is Aubrey Rollette. I'm your newly elected clerk recorder. So I just wanted to introduce myself to the board and put a face to the name. Thank you.
Thank you. Any comments from anybody or questions from the clerk in their first week and job here? Go ahead.
I would also like to make a public comment. Our new deputy district attorney assigned to RTC and CAMPO, his name is Todd Reese. He's here tonight. We're really excited to have him here. He was at the Supreme Court before this, so happy to have you here. Thanks, Todd.
Thank you. It's nice to meet you all.
Yeah, I hope the rulings are kind of down a few full levels here for this meeting tonight. Then Supreme Court, that's like a place I haven't been there before. So, approval of the minutes. I have minutes in the package. Can I have a motion or any changes?
Move to approve the Carson Area Metropolitan Planning Organization minutes from November 14th, 2018 is presented.
I'll second that.
Have a first and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, call for the question. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Unanimous? Or where are we at here? So the first one is 6A for possible action to nominate and elect a chairperson and a vice chairperson for the CAMPO board. Do I have anybody on the board that has a motion for, they've written this up for both seats, so I guess we'll ask for both seats in the same vote? That's a promotion motion, huh?
Let me do one at a time.
Okay, that's what we can do one at a time.
I move to nominate Mark Kimbrough as chairperson.
I have a motion, is there a second?
I'll second that.
And a second? Any other discussion on that?
I'm technically non-voting, but I would support that.
A third? A third? Well, that's good. That makes me feel much more comfortable.
Everybody that doesn't want to be chair, take one step.
Yeah, that's right. That's usually how it's a process of elimination, so I will gladly accept that, but let's take the vote. All in favor, say aye.
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 Specify the term.
For 1 year?
It says 2 years on
2
here.
years.
Yeah.
2 years.
So do we need to amend the motion to fix that?
I amend my motion as stated.
Okay, 2 years. Second, agree to that?
Yes.
Okay, so I guess the vote stands with those amendments, without a vote, I hope. Then we're squared away, so we have a chairperson. Now I need a vice chair. Is there an motion for a vice chair for a 2-year term? That's the step back move. So who's not here? No.
Yeah, John.
Okay, there's three of you here that can help move this along.
Didn't I read something in there that one of either the chair or the co-chair has to be the supervisor?
That's RTC.
That's just RTC.
Right.
Okay.
Well,
I'll volunteer.
I'll nominate Greg
Term.
for a 2-year term.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for the call. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Oh, well, great. Now you have vice chair. I forgot to tell you I'd be sick the next 6 meetings. All right, well, that was an easy one, so we'll move on to the next item on the agenda. 6B for possible action to approve the formal amendment to CAMPO's federal fiscal year FFY 2018 to 2021 Transportation Improvement Program. Dirk.
Thank you, Chair.
Dirk Goring, for the record. So this is a lot of paper for a minor amendment, so this is our TIP, CAMPO's TIP, which is the Transportation Improvement Program. It is a 4-year programming document, and it programs projects that are federally funded as well as projects that are of a regional significance. So the changes, you have to do a formal amendment whenever you're adding a project or you're making a significant change. So for the most part, this is being done because we are adding projects. These projects are noted in the staff report as well as a TIP document, and I'm happy to go into them if needed. In addition to those, there were some readability issues, so we took this opportunity to make some changes. We did find some errors in one of the funding tables, so we did correct that, and now that table does match with the figures, the numbers that are in the project listing attachment. So it's a straightforward amendment. That really concludes my comments, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? I looked at all that red ink. It reminded me of what the professors used to do to my book reports in college. I thought, that's why I was looking for the amendment, and it took me about an hour to read all the red changes, so I was like, wow. So hopefully there was no concern on any of the red changes. It was just cleaning up the document, which was a lot of work. Somebody spent a lot of time on that. Was that you doing all that work?
It's a team effort.
Oh, wow. So that was my only comment. That it was the most red I'd seen since college. So. Any other questions, staff, for that full report? Seeing none, I call for anybody from the public like to come forward and address this item on the agenda. Seeing none, bring it back here for a motion or any other discussion.
I move to approve the formal amendment as presented.
I'll second.
Got a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Seeing none, call for the question. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? None. Carries unanimous. Thank you. Now, last, internal communications, future agenda items.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. One of the big items we've been working on, we put a formal request for qualifications out for a transit planning effort, which will incorporate a short-range transit plan, a long-range look, as well as a coordinated transit human services plan. So meeting all those requirements in one comprehensive planning document. We've identified a qualified consultant. We're working through contract negotiations, and we expect to bring that forward next month. That'll be really the big item.
I thought we just got a long-range plan, one that Graham was working on, I thought, so I misunderstood that.
So the plan that CAMPO approved recently was the TAM plan, so that's the asset management plan, which will supplement. It's just a little bit different. This is more looking at long-term, what do we hope to achieve with the Jack Transit, and more of an operations or systems planning effort.
So will there be discussion with the lake and Douglas County and as part of all that, I guess, huh?
We hope so.
Yeah, okay. All right. Is that it for future agenda items then? And the board comments? Sandra, you have any comments from you first?
I do not.
Wow.
I know, that's a first, right?
It's usually always positive, so like, none? None? None?
None.
Boy, I'm going to break a record for a meeting here tonight. So the next meeting is tentatively scheduled for 4:30 on February 13th. And the last thing on the agenda is one more chance for the public to come forward if there's anybody else that would like to introduce themselves or come up with any item addressing the board. Seeing none, I come back and call for a vote on adjournment.
So moved.
So moved. We're closed, and the next meeting will start at
Quarter till.
RTC. Thank you. Geez, I get a record for that. Oh, no. If I would have known that, I would have talked fast.
I'd like to call to order this meeting of the Carson City Regional Transportation Commission. Today is January 9th, 2019. It is 4:45 and we are in the Sierra Room at the Carson City Community Center. Kathy, can we have a roll call, please?
Chairperson Bonkowski.
Here.
Vice Chairperson Bagwell, Commissioner Kimbrough. Here. Commissioner McQuarrie. Here. Commissioner Stedfield. Here. Quorum is present.
Thank you, Kathy. Item 2 on the agenda management notice. Are there any changes to the agenda?
No changes, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Item 3, any disclosures from any member of the board? Seeing none, we will move on to item 4, public comment. Is there any member of the public that would like to address the RTC at this time? We will also have public comment for each item. I see nobody approaching, so we will move on to item 5, approval of the minutes. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
Yes, I would like to move to approve the minutes of the November 14th, 2018 meeting, with one exception that the date at the end before the signature is changed to January of 19 instead of December of 18.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second?
Do we have any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. Passes unanimously. We're now on public meeting items. Item 6A for possible action to nominate and elect a chairperson and vice chairperson for the Carson City RTC for a one-year term. Do we have any nominations for the chair?
I'd like to nominate Brad Bonkowski for chair RTC for a one-year term.
Are there any other nominations? Seeing none, any discussion? Seeing no discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. Passes unanimously. Now take nominations for vice chair. Somebody speak up. All
I'll
right.
nominate Mark Kimbrough for vice chair.
Any further nominations? Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
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 Any That was very slow. That was a slow vote. That was a slow vote. Any opposed, say nay. All right, you're
You
elected.
better not get sick.
All right, we're now on to item 6B for possible action to approve cooperative agreement P714-18-063 between the Carson City RTC and the Nevada Department of Transportation that cancels prior agreement PR 634-17-063 and replaces it with this agreement using state funds for complete streets improvements along South Carson Street from Roland Street to 5th Street. And who is taking this? This is Lucia.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Lucia Maloney, Transportation Manager. Previously, back in February of 2017, RTC did approve Agreement 634-17063 between Carson City and Nevada Department of Transportation. After Carson City received the Tiger Grant for the South Carson Complete Streets project, and in discussions with NDOT and Federal Highway Administration, it was determined between the agencies that it would be a prudent use of staff resources for the management of funds and administration of those funds to do this switch in the agreement. So NDOT will be taking the STBG and the TAP funds and using them in their programs, and they have offered to give Carson City state gas tax funds. And what that does is it just streamlines administration of the various funding sources for that South Carson Street project. It's a better use of staff resources. I think I mumbled through that, but let me know if you have any questions. I'm happy to answer them.
Lucia, will we need to make any other corrections or adjustments to the grants themselves, since we were the recipients previously? Or is all that taken care of?
It's all taken care of in this agreement, and actually, it's a win for the city in that the eligibility and the use of the funds, we have a little bit more latitude with how we use them. Under the agreement with the STBG and the TAP, it was very limited to sidewalk improvements in a very specific location. Under this new agreement, we're able to use the funds on any complete streets improvements through the entire length of the corridor. So again, it really just makes it more flexible and easier to administrate on the staff side.
Are there any questions from the commissioners? Nope. Is there any public comment on this item? Seeing nobody approaching, I will bring this back to the commission and entertain a motion.
I move to approve cooperative agreement P714-18-063 between Carson City RTC and Nevada Department of Transportation.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second?
Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. Passes unanimously. We are now on item 6C for information only, staff update on seasonal street maintenance activities. Rick.
Good evening, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. I was asked to come here. I got 3 items to hit on. I'd like to just hit on one. If you guys have any questions, throw them out there, and then we'll go to the next one, rather than just spewing out all the information. So the first item was tree pruning. So we got a crew of 2 guys. Currently, we go out and we prune just city trees. We don't go out and prune private trees. When private trees become an issue, we get a hold of code enforcement. They usually go get with the residents or whoever else that has the tree to deal with that, with the caveat that in time sensitive, when we do that through code enforcement, there's a time period after they get noticed to deal with the issue. If it's a safety issue like signs covered or something like that, we'll typically go out there and just take care of it quickly and deal with that issue when it comes to safety issues, just for time. Our larger trees, we get together with parks. We usually Public Works will prune those larger trees, our cottonwoods, just because we got the staff and the equipment to do that. Pruning primarily occurs on a case-by-case basis when issues come up. When we're caught up, which happens occasionally, we'll go out and attack an area, like we'll take like the Minnesota corridor, or we'll take another corridor that has issues, and we'll go through there. Coming up next month, usually in the month of February, we will treat for elm beetles. So we will be out taking care of that. It's a ground injection process, and then during that time, we also take the time while that's occurring to do some of our inspections of the trees in the areas because they're kind of spread out, so it gives us a time for that same crew to do tree inspections and follow-up inspections. So that's how our tree pruning's working right now. Any questions?
So what happens with vegetation that might be encroaching in the right-of-way, but the actual tree or shrub or bush is on private property? Can you, especially if it's a visibility hazard and, for sight, did you guys take care of that?
Like I said, typically we'll get a hold of code enforcement, have those guys get out with I'll say the offender, but the property owner. But if it's a safety issue, like I said, covering up signs, if it's a tripping hazard, we have gone out and taken care of some of those if it's a real need. But typically we rely on the property owner to take some corrective action.
Rick, when the health assessments on especially the cottonwoods are done, who makes the final call on tree removal?
All right, I knew this one was coming.
We always get the complaints every time a tree comes out.
Oh, trust me. Internally, the final decision's made internally between, now it comes down to me and Darren. But it's a touchy subject because everybody gets very sensitive about taking trees down, and whether it needs to come down or not, it's a touchy issue. So we take it seriously. We make sure that they definitely need to come down if they do come down, and then we'll make the decision to pull it. On a technical standpoint, we could go through and say, hey, here's our deficient trees, go out and just start mowing them down. But that's not really the prudent thing to do for a community. And then the other thing is replacement of those trees. Is it an area to where it could be replaced or needs to be replaced, or is it an area to where it shouldn't have been there to begin with and it needs to come out and go away? So the bottom line answer, it's going to be myself and the Public Works Director who's going to make that final decision.
And we have an arborist on staff, correct?
Yes, we've got 4 of them. Our two-man tree crew, and then we've got 2 other in-house folks that are arborists.
Any additional questions from the commissioners?
No, you stole my thunder.
All right.
Off to the next issue. So leaf and gutter maintenance. This is this time of year to where this gets, we're getting past where it's really critical. But so we've got our 3 sweeper operators and our 3 sweepers. It takes a month for the 3 sweepers to cover the entire city. It takes a 4-week period. There's actually a schedule. It just dawned on me, I forgot my schedule. But there's actually a schedule set up to where theoretically you should see a sweeper. My week is the first week of each month. So theoretically, barring equipment breakdowns or anything else, I should see the street sweeper by there the first week of each month. The last few weeks have been troublesome because we've been down to 1 sweeper. When issues of mechanical breakdowns and other things happen, sometimes a month gets skipped. But we don't, in order to keep up with our schedule, we don't keep pushing it off. Some areas just might get skipped and followed up the second month. So when it comes to storms and whatnot, we pull everybody off for pre-storms. Storms coming in, we'll pull all 20 Public Works folks, and we'll go out and clean, upwards 150, 175 grates. Get them all clean of debris and leaves and whatnot, and get that taken care of, because our street sweepers really aren't made, they're not efficient when it comes to leaf pickup. Leaves actually plug up the machines and cause all sorts of havoc. So it's better to get ahead of it. So by keeping up with it, that's the biggest issue. But to where we only hit each area a month, we kind of rely on the residents too to keep the frontage of their properties picked up, especially on the west side where we got heavy leaf issues. The other big issue is not to blow leaves out into the street. We've got some of those, and we will get code for that. That's a no-no, and some people have found that out. We'll get code enforcement to go and educate those folks that that's not to be done. And the reason is it plugs up the system. And to where, if we were able to sweep on a daily basis, that'd be one thing. But to where it's a monthly basis, it just creates a lot of havoc. And then when we do have some of these storms come in, it's not a good situation. And in the fall, we add additional hours and days of work to our crews to do some extra effort in our high-volume areas. The west side is a good example where we got a lot of trees. Some of the areas that are heavily populated with that lose their leaves, we staff up our crews. Well, we don't staff them up. They just work longer in order to cover those in the fall. And this is all contingent on operations of equipment and then the availability of manpower. That's where really we get hurt. When it comes into people being out sick, equipment being down, we kind of start to stumble, and we start backfilling with whoever we can to stay up with that.
Rick, have you sent letters out to the licensed landscape companies in town on the blowing the leaves out into the streets? Because almost every instance where I see that happening, it's a professional landscape company that's doing it with the blowers.
I know we have had communications with them in the past. I'm not sure whether we do that on a regular basis or if we've done it recently, but I know when we run into those issues, usually code enforcement's the one that's on top of that. But I don't know. I'll have to find out if we actually do it on a regular basis of just reminders, like we send out the leaflets to residents of what to do when this time comes around. I'd have to check to see if we regularly get with those landscape folks. I'm going to assume not.
Yeah, and that would be a pretty easy solution. Like I said, if you drive down Williams Street or anywhere on the west side through the commercial buildings, you will see professional landscapers blowing leaves into the streets everywhere you go.
Gotcha. Oh, I'll dig into that.
Any other questions from the commission? Chaz?
Yeah, Rick, so it seems like the sweepers, or 2 out of the 3, or 1 out of the 3, have been down for quite a long time. Why is that? Is that parts or what?
They come up and go down constantly. So usually when you hear that we're down to 1, usually it's not the same. Usually it's not the same one that's running. It's musical chairs, and the issue is they run all the time. They run for 10 hours straight, 4 days a week or 5 days a week, or depending on what time of year it is. And they're not they're not a finely tuned instrument. It's a harsh, picking up gravel, glass, tree branches, other things get sucked up in there. It's harsh on them, and so they take a lot of abuse, and they go up and down. So when they do go down, they're one of our priorities to get on and get them back up and running, because it is a part of our air quality permit, especially this time of year when we're sanding and whatnot. We have to keep the PM10 down and whatnot, so we need to be out there sweeping and picking that up. So we need to keep those things running, but it's hard. It's just a brutal environment picking
PM10
stuff
is what?
up. Oh, particulate matter under 10 microns, I believe. So it's dust, fine dust is what it is. So it's what especially here in Nevada, it's one of the big things that they harp on is keeping the PM10 down, which is your fine dust in the air.
Additional questions? On the number 3.
All right. Now this one I assume I'll get beat up on, but we'll hit this one anyway. So snow removal. So in residential areas, I mean, the long and short is we don't. I mean, the main reason is equipment and manpower. I mean, we hit our main thoroughfares so we can get everybody to work, get them to school, whatnot. But the residential areas, typically we won't hit unless we have a large storm. We got a large accumulation. We can get caught up on all of our normal snow routes. We will come back. Usually it's 4 or 5 days later. If it hasn't already melted off, we'll start hitting some of those residential areas. Typically, the snow's melted off, so we don't have to worry about it. But when there's been a couple instances since I've lived here to where we've gotten into residential areas, but it creates an issue to where the residents aren't happy because their driveways are windrowed in front of. Plows aren't surgical tools, so it's not really efficient time-wise to go out there and notch out for everybody's driveway, clean them off. That's why they don't get cleaned out, and it just creates angst. So our primary goal, so when we do plow, if you don't know, the way it's set up is we've got 12 plows in our fleet plus a grader. So the city's broke up into 4 groups. Each group gets 2 plows, and then there's another group that is Carson Street all the way through, and then William Street out as far as Lampa. And so that's where our 10 plows, 2 plows in each of those, and they're running nonstop, and then the grader goes up to Lakeview. And so with that, our when you got 2 plows in a geographical quadrant of the city, it's just impossible to hit all those side streets. So the main focus is being able to get school buses going, be able to get people going to and from work, and not focus on those residential streets. What we run into, Sunday was a primary example, called everybody in at 2 in the morning, worked until noon, wasn't supposed to be too much that evening. Well, it got pretty nasty that evening. Most of the people were only on a few hours rest, had to bring half those people back in, so we had a full crew. It just makes it real tough when some of those kind of get split up. And then if we go multiple shifts, we'll bring in some of our water operators, some of our sewer operators, some of the other folks that are trained to run plows, bring them in to help us out. So it really comes down to an equipment and a manpower issue. You can only run so much equipment and we only got so many bodies. So that's primarily why we don't get into those residential areas unless it's really bad. And like I said, everything else is caught up. We got to make sure all our other thoroughfares are taken care of first. And that's pretty much it on that, but I know there's got to be other questions.
Well, I guess the only downside, that if you did get caught up and got into the residential areas 4 or 5 days later, it's just ice at that point. So plowing it doesn't help a whole lot. It just knocks the high spots off.
It creates more issues. It does. And everybody gets cranky. I know they do. It happens. And it's not like I don't disagree, but that's why typically we don't get in there. Unless there's several years back, we got 8 inches, and that's exactly what it was. 4 or 5 days later, it was ice. We're down, and they're breaking that up, and it just created, now you got chunks in front of people's driveways, and it's even worse than just fluffy snow, so.
Any other questions?
Well, I'm just going to say, I've lived here for 23, 24 years, and I've never seen a problem with snow plowing and the way if there's an accident or something, you guys show up with the sand trucks and make sure it gets sanded right after. Because sometimes that's how you find out about the icy stretches is all of a sudden you get a call from the SO saying we got a problem. So
Right.
I've always thought you did well on the main streets and stuff, and I understand the side streets because that's a mess.
It's
And you're going to make
terrible.
more people unpleasant than pleasant. So
Yes.
it's just have to learn how to put chains on sometimes to go 3 blocks and take them off, which is the bad. So I just want to say I have never heard or seen anything that I ever thought was a concern, and I'm a little bit in a position to say what a great job you do because I'm on one of the roads to the hospital, so you guys plow that early so I don't have to worry.
Well, we appreciate it.
Yeah, but you did put a berm in front of my driveway, which is wonderful. I have no problem with that. So thanks. No, I think you do a good job.
No,
Good leadership there.
we appreciate it. It's tough to organize that and keep that going, but it's what we do.
Any additional questions? Jess?
Yeah, I too, Rick, I think the city does a pretty good job of plowing. I've noticed that some sidewalks, especially sort of wider offset ones, get plowed and others might not. Do you have a policy on that, or is?
Primarily, those are covered by parks and their routes to school is what they are. They're pedestrian routes for the most part. There's some others that they get some other paths and whatnot to get taken care of, but primarily parks does that, takes care of those.
And then I realize the priority is to open up streets for safety and emergency vehicles and access for schools, et cetera, but all the plowed snow ends up on the sidewalk and or in the bike lane, which just makes it pretty tough for pedestrians, and bicyclists, but particularly pedestrians. They end up having to walk in the street. I don't know what you'd do about that, but other than come back with a separate set of equipment to do the sidewalks.
Right, and that comes down to the whole manpower issue. I mean, the primary focus is on traveled lanes, and yeah, what do you do with that snow? It's got to get kicked somewhere. Unfortunately, you travel down at lower speeds to try to keep the berms to a minimum. Your production goes way down. We try not to ramp up to speeds to where we're blowing it clear up in people's yards and whatnot, but you're right, it gets kicked up on sidewalks. It does, and it's unfortunate, but right now, I don't have a good solution for that.
Well, I'll say that I've been to a lot of cities in this country, and I think that we do a very good job here plowing. I've been, like Washington DC, they get an inch of snow and the whole city shuts down.
Right.
And that's a big city, right? You'd think that, especially in the east, that they would have that covered. It seems like cities out here in the west that we do a much better job of understanding how to handle snow and where to put it. You go up to California and they dump it all in the center turn lane so
Right.
nobody can cross the street. You know, at least we dump it on the sidewalks. Maybe the pedestrians have to walk along the shoulder, but I think that's a lot safer than dumping it all in the middle of the road. So, good job.
Nope, appreciate it.
Anything else for us?
Nope, that's all I got.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, we are now on item 7 on the agenda, internal communications and administrative matters, non-action items. 7A, Transportation Manager's Report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I did leave a handout in front of you, and there's more in the back as well. The city, Carson City, was redesignated as a bronze-level bicycle-friendly community back in December. There were several categories that we had some slight changes from our previous application in 2014. You can see some additional details. I think big picture, as we look ahead to what we're doing to make ourselves a bicycle-friendly community, continuing to increase the infrastructure and the facilities miles that we offer to cyclists, as well as looking programmatically at what we're doing, relationships with law enforcement, education to our residents, working with different groups, those types of things. There's some areas where we can improve, but we are doing a good job, and this is a certification of that. That said, I would again like to thank Muscle Powered. They helped the city greatly, myself and the transportation team, get the application in on time. Without them, we may not have even been able to apply. So that was a really good partnership there, and staff are looking forward to continuing that in the future. My second update is that Graham Dollarhide, our transit coordinator, his last day is next Wednesday. He's taken a position at Nevada Department of Transportation as the statewide transit program manager. It's a fantastic opportunity, and I couldn't be more happy for him, except for that he's leaving us, and it is a big loss for the city. So I'm sorry he's not here tonight, but I am very thankful for what he's contributed to the program over the last 5 years, and there's some pretty big shoes to fill. So
does that mean that we're going to have some influence now with NDOT?
that is the optimism I'm trying to carry forward. The third update for you this evening is that tomorrow staff are opening a UPWP amendment. This is more for CAMPO than RTC, but I did want to announce it at RTC for a 30-day public comment period open from January 10th through February 10th. The amendment will shift some funds around to really aggregate funding for the transit development and coordinated plan that I mentioned during the CAMPO meeting. So that amendment will be posted on the website and in various locations. It'll be in the Nevada Appeal. Comments are welcome at Public Works office or on the CAMPO website. That concludes my manager's report.
Any questions on the report? All right, moving on to 7B, Street Operation Activity Report.
Since we had Mr. Cooley here to present on seasonal street maintenance activities, I won't go into detail on what's included in your packet, though there are 2 months of a report. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Any questions? Mark, any questions?
No,
Craig?
I'm sorry.
No? Okay.
I'm shaking my head.
All right. Project status report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The South Carson Street Complete Streets project, after the RTC action tonight, we'll get the funding section updated to more accurately reflect the funding sources that will be used moving forward. The Board of Supervisors did approve the 30% design plans for the South Carson Street project on December 20th. Staff are on schedule to start construction in calendar year 2019, and 60% design plans are anticipated in February. More likely, this group will see those 60% design plans at the March meeting. The freeway multi-use path project to Colorado Street, this is at 60% design. It's moving forward, and we anticipate construction to take place during the next construction season. As discussed at the last couple of meetings, the Fairview Drive reconstruction project is on hold while we coordinate utility funding for concurrent improvements in that area. The Kings Canyon Trailhead Improvement Project that includes the roadway reconstruction piece, the partners did hold a kickoff meeting, and design is underway. We anticipate 30% design late this winter. As mentioned at a previous meeting, the Stewart Street Ped Improvement projects are just on hold until the spring. They're ready to go in immediately as soon as it's warm enough. The CDBG College Parkway Improvements projects, this is for ADA improvements along College Parkway from Carson Street to Northgate. The environmental clearances took a little bit longer than expected, but we have been given the notice to proceed. We're moving forward, design has begun, and we're hoping to get those out to bid in the next couple months. The freeway multi-use path to the Edmonds Sports Complex, this continues that freeway multi-use path down south. It is anticipated, I believe, to be constructed not next summer, but probably the summer after, more realistically, but we are excited for that. Airport Road Sewer Replacement Project, this was a fairly urgent utility need on the sewer side. We've gone in with some road dollars to complement that work while they're in there. And that's in the pre-design phase, and because it is fairly urgent, we expect that to happen next summer. We have added to your packet the pavement preservation projects as part of Performance District 1 of the pavement management plan. We've broken them into a couple of projects. The first page on the packet, page number 30, includes College Parkway from Northgate to Airport. Separate a little bit between Carson Street to Northgate, which is at the same extent of the CDBG job. We're going to have to, due to the timing and the delay, if you will, of the CDBG project from Carson to Northgate, we may have to split that up and get in there. It could be a little bit technical, but that's all intended to get done next summer. Hot Springs Road, Roop Street, and Arrowhead, those are all slurry seal pavement preservation projects, so those are all on schedule to get to bid in the next month or so. On the next page, packet page number 31, this is the Gonai Road Reconstruction Project as part of Pavement Performance District 1 under the Pavement Management Plan. This is from Boeing to Arrowhead. It actually stops just north of Arrowhead. It is a small section, but it is in need of reconstruction. That is under design, and we expect to get that into bid in the next couple of months.
Lucia, the development agreement that we have with Cinderlight, is that, what portion of the road was that for?
That was a different, that's a great question. That was a different section. It was, I believe, Conver to Boeing, or it was just north of this section. So it sort of continues those previous improvements.
And now that that road has been replaced, is that development agreement still in effect, or did that end when the road was replaced?
I believe that completed the obligations under that agreement. I could be mistaken. I can check into that for you. That was my understanding.
If you could, thank you.
Sure.
Because the reason I ask is because the traffic isn't going away, right? And that's what's tearing up this section of the road.
That's a great comment. If you turn the page onto packet page 32, during evaluation of projects in Performance District 1, pursuant to the city's Complete Streets policy, we've looked at all sorts of modes, and one of those things we looked at, in addition to bike ped, transit, and other improvements, was street lighting. We've identified a couple locations for street lights, so those are included as a separate project just because they have a little bit of a different project life cycle, but those are in there as well. That concludes my comments on these projects. Happy to answer any questions you might have.
Lucia, with new streetlight installations, do we look at solar-powered arrays on those, or are they all hardwired? Is that the only option that we look at, is hardwiring?
There's a couple options that we have. Most of the time, we try to work with NV Energy and make it a partnership and get onto their poles. So that said, I don't know how much we're looking into the solar piece, but that is something that maybe we should look at in the future.
Yeah, I've seen some units now that are motion sensitive and have solar battery packs on them, so they're really self-contained. And so, at some point, we're going to want to have to look at that.
I will inquire about that.
Any questions or comments from the commission? Go ahead, Chaz.
Lucia, we talked a couple of meetings ago about what happens at the end of the linear ditch bike path, and possible ways to make that a lot safer. I was just curious, would that have to be added to the RTP, to the tip, in order to go forward, or do we need to come up with a sort of proposed solution, and do we go after grant funding, or what?
If it's a regionally significant project, it goes into the TIP and the RTP. In my mind, it's fairly regionally significant. Right now, the project is unfunded, though it's come up a couple of times. It's something that's on our radar and something that needs to happen. There are a couple of right-of-way issues that we need to get around. We've been in discussions with the state, with parks, and with various property owners, and it's just taking time, unfortunately. But yes, in my mind, it will be added to the TIP, and as soon as we can find funding for it.
I saw that Graham came in the building. His timing wasn't perfect, so a chance to say thank you for your service to Carson City. And
Thank you guys as well. It's been an honor and pleasure to serve here. I've done some good things to say about Carson City and RTC and everything, so it's been great. Thank you.
thanks, Graham.
Any additional questions, comments? I would echo that, Graham.
Thank you.
Enjoy your new job, but come back and visit. We'll move on to 7D, future agenda items.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The two big items for next month that you can look forward to is our Safe Routes to School program has developed an action plan. Carissa Moffitt, our new bicycle and pedestrian coordinator, will be here next month to present that action plan and give you a little flavor of what that program does, it's really exciting because I don't know that we've brought anything from Safe Routes to this group before. The second big item is that pursuant to our transit action plan that Mr. Dollarhide helped develop a few months ago, we conducted a transit non-user survey to complement the user survey that we conducted recently, and so we plan to bring those survey results to you next month as well.
Any questions or comments? Seeing none, I will go to agenda item 8, board comments. Any comments from the commission members? Lori, Greg, go ahead,
One
Mark.
comment. I had mentioned to Lucia, I must have been bored, but I was searching channels and came on the planning commission meeting, and Lucia did a really good presentation on what RTC and CAMPO is. And I actually learned things from that presentation, which I shouldn't have. So I just want to plug that if there's ever an opportunity in front of this board, that maybe we could look at that slideshow just all on ourselves as a refresher and some thoughts and how it all puts together, because we always see pieces of it at a time. You painted the whole picture, so I thought you did a good job. So that's my only comment. And not that it has to be on agenda, but I think people might enjoy seeing how well you put that together.
I think that's a good idea, if you could do that.
I appreciate your comments and also that I didn't bore everyone, so we'll add that to agenda in the future. Thank you.
Next meeting is tentatively scheduled after the CAMPO meeting on February 13th, right here in this room. Final public comment. Is there anybody? Come on up.
I just have a suggestion for future agenda.
Come on up to the podium and introduce yourself. And good.
Happy New Year, Louis Lam from NDOT. I just have a suggestion for a future agenda item. We're actually been active on some public transportation planning projects and doing some cooperative work. We have some things in the works for doing some more cooperative planning work with CAMPO and NDOT. So if you would like to invite NDOT to come back, maybe Graham would be able to come back for another meeting as well. But we'd be happy to talk about some of the things we're working on with Lucia and her team.
That'd be great. Thank you, Liz. We will get that on the agenda. Any additional public comment? Going once, going twice. We are now up for adjournment. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
We are adjourned. Thank you all for showing up and participating.